Well, battle is brewing in Washington over a pro-labor bill that would make it easier for employees to decide whether to join a union. Now, under the Employee Free Choice Act, if a majority of workers sign cards requesting a union, an employer would have to allow them to join one. Labor leaders spent close to $400 million to boost the vote for President-elect Obama, who supports the bill. And the AFL-CIO is trying to raise $30 million for advertisements to push the bill through Congress next year. If the bill does turn into a law, what impact will it have on the workplace and the economy? Joining me now is Mark McKinnon, the Vice Chairman for Public Strategies, Inc., and a spokesman for the Workforce Fairness Institute, and Mary Beth Maxwell is Executive Director for American Rights at Work. Good morning to the two of you. Thanks for being here.
Good morning.
Mark.
Morning, Alexis.
You're against the bill. Tell me why.
Well, I consider myself a radical centrist, and I published a column this morning on the Daily Beast praising President-elect Obama on his pragmatic cabinet choices. But this legislation is the most radical rewrite of labor legislation since the 1930s, and it is a public policy disaster and a political nightmare in the making, because it strips employees who are being organized in the workplace of the fundamental American right and principle to cast a private ballot, and it opens them up to coercion because they have to declare publicly in front of labor organizers and employers, by the way, which way they'd vote in a labor organizing election, and it's a disaster.
Mary Beth, what do you think about that?
What do I think about that? You know, the Employee Free Choice Act, it's a common sense policy that's going to help Main Street. What it does, the Employee Free Choice Act restores balance, and it gives workers the choice again about forming a union so that they can bargain about wages and benefits. Workers that have unions earn 30% higher wages. They're 59% more likely to have employer-provided health care, and that's why there's majority support for the Employee Free Choice Act.
Okay, but Mary Beth, let me play devil's advocate for just a moment. What used to be considered the Detroit Three, they're going to go to Capitol Hill again on Friday, and you and I both know that one of the main reasons why the automakers in this country face bankruptcy is because of the contracts that they have with labor unions for those richer pays, for those higher health care benefits. And the American people right now are pretty angry, as I think you are very well aware, about the right of unions when the taxpayer could be on the hook. How do you get something like this accomplished at a moment like this when it's taken center stage?
You know, I really disagree on that. This is the United States of America. We can absolutely have thriving businesses and invest in working families and a strong middle class. And successful companies like AT&T and Harley-Davidson demonstrate that. We can do that. I think what the American people are tired of are these old school conflicts and fear-mongering, right? They want us to sit down at the table together like grown-ups, talk to each other, roll our sleeves up, and come up with solutions that work in this 21st century global economy.
You know, Mark, you were one of Senator McCain's chief advisors, and during his presidential campaign, you tell me, what does this say if something like this does become law, and what are the long-term ramifications for not only the American worker, but for the corporations involved?
Well, the one thing that we know is that employers in America are completely stressed out right now because of the economic meltdown, and they have no idea about this legislation, and it would impose labor conditions mandated by a federal arbitrator when negotiations break down. So a federal bureaucrat will come in and dictate two-year contracts for employers, and employers just have no idea about this legislation. And contrary to what Mary Beth said, actually, 87% of the American public support private ballots. It's a Democratic tradition, and Democratic congressmen supporting this legislation wrote to the Mexican Congress in 2001 urging them to support private ballots, and members of Democratic Congress just last week in an election for leadership said, thank God for private ballots, or else we would have been open to coercion and we wouldn't have been able to change the leadership.
Mary Beth, you're smiling. Tell me why.
I'm smiling. Let's set the record straight about what the Employee Free Choice Act does and what it doesn't do, right? These guys are saying that it does away with secret ballot elections, and it's simply not true. And spending millions of dollars on misleading attack ads saying that it's true doesn't make it true. What the Employee Free Choice Act does is it gives a choice to the workers. They can form a union through getting a majority of people to sign cards, or they can form a union through an election. But right now, in the current system, employers get to invoke an outdated set of government rules that gives them the upper hand. Did you know that in 25% of organizing campaigns, employers illegally fire someone during the course of that campaign? What the Employee Free Choice Act is going to do is simply fix a broken system that gives corporations far too much power. We need a little balance, a little fairness. Workers deserve a free choice and a fair chance.
Mark?
Well, it's actually a forced choice, and you know, you don't have to agree with me. Just look at what Senator George McGovern, who has come out of retirement, he feels so strongly about this issue. He's a longtime labor supporter, principled leader of the Democratic Party, says this defies everything in the Democratic Party's tradition because it does, in fact. All you have to do is read the legislation, go to SaveTheElection.com. It says clearly that all you have to do is get 50% plus one of people in these card check systems, which is not a private ballot, to declare they want a union, and a union is mandated by the legislation.
Mark and Mary Beth, I love your energy. I'd love to stay on it. Unfortunately, I have to go to a commercial break, so I can pay my bills here. But I'd love to have the two of you guys back on to talk about it in the future.
Sounds
Thank
great.
you guys so much for joining us this
Anytime.
morning. All right,
Thanks,
guys, we will
Alexa.
be right back with much more Money for Breakfast in just a moment. Stay with us.